Hello, everybody, and welcome to the State of Sound podcast. I'm Jason Evans-Groth, digital media librarian at NC State University Libraries. Today, I am joined by NC State alum, band leader, Merge Records employee, Triangle music aficionado, person who likes to write songs and sing them, Natalie King. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for saying yes.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
You're here on your home turf of Centennial Campus. Did you spend a lot of time when you were a student here?
This is not my home turf at all.
Okay, tell us about your home turf.
I went to school for graphic design, so I was in the College of Design, which is near the Bell Tower. It's its own world with the liaison. I never came here. I came here to go to Hunt to check out the new fancy library. Which you now work at.
Did you only go there once to check out the library?
I went there a couple times, but I never came here out of I never had a reason to come here out of just fun and hanging out at the library.
So I'd like to point out we're sitting at a new event venue called The Corner. It's cool, some shipping containers, some market lights, good landscaping, some nice people. Maybe they're eating lunch. Maybe they're here for the podcast.
Yeah.
What was Centennial Campus for you as a design student? What did they tell you about it? What was Centennial to you when you were a student who was mostly in that building by the Bell Tower?
Centennial was this other world where people with math and science brains lived. And that's not my realm. It was just another world. And it definitely wasn't this cozy. I mean, even before Hunt Library was this really fun, cool, modern designed thing, and outside of that I was there's nowhere to hang out that I know of. So I don't know. It's cool that it's a place now I come here for shows at the loading dock. That's kind of wild. Now I don't visit liaison or that side of the campus. I usually come here. So it's weird how that kind of changes. But is that your mission though? Is to bring people to Centennial specifically?
That's a good question. It is the mission of the person so Jude, who helped organize this and is the sort of mastermind and Mr. Accessibility. The person, there's this. It's a big plot of land that's pretty.
Yeah.
There's a lake here. There's some beautiful buildings. So working with people on Centennial to activate the spaces has been awesome because, the point of being in college, I think. Point of being in a university is to see what other people do, to be inspired by it, and then to do your own thing.
Yeah. So
making spaces that can help that happen has always been my drive since I started here, and meeting people like Jude and then Kyle, who's running sound today. That's what that's one of the reasons why we asked you. You were a student here, and how can we get students who were students here to inspire other people through podcasts, through music performance, etc. So I think there's lots of it's cool. There's always lots of potential.
Yeah.
You mentioned this. You played the first show that we ever hosted on the Hunt Library loading dock.
That was the first show?
It was the first time we'd ever done
because I guess the previous ones were just there was no people. There were no people. It was just a video.
Right. It was just video. So you were
cool.
You were there playing in front of people. What was your feeling about being in that space playing that show? And you were the first person to actually be on stage too.
Truly, I didn't have low expectations, but I was this is going to be outside. What does the loading dock even look like? I work in a warehouse, so I was loading dock? I didn't know what that was going to be like, but it was magical. The sound echoes just right, and there's the wall of vines. And even though it's this sloping, paved loading dock, everybody's sitting there kind of amphitheater seating. And of course, I don't know if this was you or someone else, but someone put plants and these lamps out, and it was just really cozy. It was really magical. And also everyone was asking me about this loading dock thing. They were like, you're at NC State. You're at which library? And the outside the loading dock, nobody really understood. Also, people thought I was joking too. So, but now people know it as a place, and you've had a couple shows there already.
Yeah, we have.
It sounds great. It sounds great. As doing stuff outside is difficult. Sound just escapes completely, but in there, it echoes perfectly.
We had this. I don't remember when it happened, but I think it was right at the beginning, right I guess, the spring of 2021. So NC State is still off campus for the most part, and classes are online, and Kyle Langdon and I, who work with the digital media lab at Hill and Hunt, and we had money for State of Sound. We had money to create events to inspire the NC State community to think about how to participate in making art in some way or another. And we started doing those no audience shows on the loading dock and capturing them and mixing them really well. And I think that we could the potential of it. We'd always known it was there. We'd done experiments to try and do shows out there. It's covered. The vines are there. It's the perfect venue, I think. It's you can rain like it did that night that you played, and no one is affected.
Cool. Yeah.
And so we, to be quite honest, just sort of pulled the trigger on that event without really telling everybody.
Like people above you at work?
No, my bosses knew.
Okay.
But we just kind of went for it.
Okay.
We just wanted to see what would happen, and so many people reported what you just said, which I think made Kyle and I, we were just beaming the whole time. We're just like, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
We, as people who, we're both musicians, we've played in DIY spaces all the time, and I think we both, Kyle was an NC State student. I was always looking for ways for my university to give me an opportunity to shape a thing that I was interested in a space I was paying for, right?
Yeah.
So being able to do it felt so good, and the fact that it worked was another one of those NC State moments where I can't believe we thought of this, and I can't believe it's actually going down.
But also when you do a lot of work in DIY spaces, you see the potential in any space. So it makes sense that you saw the loading dock and you were like, this can happen. But how did you bring that up to people you worked with? You were like, I want to use this space.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's funny because now the tables have turned. Now the interview is for me.
The turns have tabled.
Yeah. I think I just told my boss,
You told you didn't ask?
I told him, I want to do this. I've been asked if I can. Can I just put it on the calendar? Can we see what's going to happen? And I think the answer was let me talk to my bosses. And all the bosses were like, yeah, that seems fine. Don't let anybody in. And he is always, he's a fan. I mean, people love music, right? You kind of, it's kind of like fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
When you're talking to someone about music, most people are into making stuff like that happen, so long as it's in a safe space and and everybody gets a chance to experience it. But he was just like, yeah, see what happens. We had bought this PA. In fact, the one that we're using today, we had bought it when Jude of Centennial Campus and I had written a grant to do a kind of a big Dreamville collaboration, and then Dreamville in 2020 didn't happen. So we had this PA. We're like, what can we do with it? Let's do a show on the loading dock. It's outside. People can be separate. Just everything felt right about it.
What were you concerned at all about a shipment arriving when?
So we've done events there since, and shipments have arrived while we were doing it. And what happens is the people who are there, kind of like a basement show, all realize that if they just help that person load the stuff in, the show can go on. Yeah. You worked in DIY spaces, right? Have you ever booked them?
No, I've never booked shows. Well, this isn't a DIY space, but I worked at Cat's Cradle Back Room. I worked the door there,
So you've been part of venues.
I think I've been a part of shows in a slightly different way. I help make gig flyers and stuff, or help set up, but I don't book shows. I don't even book my own shows. My friends invite me to things very kindly.
Is that how it started for you? How'd you get into music?
That's a big question.
Yeah, it is. I mean, so I guess how do we narrow that down? I like asking this question because when was it that you felt what song, what record, what moment made you feel like music was something that was important to you? And how old were you when that happened?
Okay, so music was always there, but of medium importance for a while. Me and my brother and my sister all learned how to play piano really young. I did Suzuki with violin, stuff like that. Orchestra in school. But I guess it wasn't until Avril Lavigne came on the scene that I was like, yeah, I'm going to teach myself how to play guitar, which I could do because I knew how to play other instruments at that time. But that was this is me making music and taking it and making it my own versus my parents just saying, this is something you can do after school. So that's kind of a funny Avril Lavigne, but that truly was it. And I remember reading this interview where she said that she learned how to play guitar on her own at like 11 years old. And I'm, somewhere around that age thinking, yeah, that's me now.
Were you? Yeah.
I'm like 13 or something.
So you had a little bit of background, and I think I mentioned this when we talked to Libby Rodenbow out here a few weeks ago. Learning how to play guitar was super liberating for me. Coming from I was trained as a classical saxophone player. Like not jazz, but like avant-garde alto sax. I was
like,
really
as
into
a child?
weird. Yeah, like starting at 9 years old, I told my parents I wanted to be a saxophone player, and I was thinking like I wanted to play like the solos on Huey Lewis songs or like. And I Got My Mind Set on You by George Harrison, but my dad my dad is a church musician. He's a minister of music. So the people he led me to were leading me to things like, seriously, like late 19th century avant-garde alto saxophone music. And I found it to be extremely interesting, but I had to play it alone. Like no one could, like I got good at that. And like I couldn't even find accompaniment to play this stuff with me. It's all in weird time signatures. And so I was totally obsessed with it. So it was either alone, it was either solo, and just blowing into a horn, playing music that was mostly unmelodic and without any groove.
I'm assuming not a ton of your peers or like
yeah, hard pressed to find someone who's really into like. I'm trying to even think of any of the names of the people because who knew? Nobody knows them. I don't even own like recordings of these pieces anymore. They were so weird. Or I was in school band playing like marches or like like uplifting music with 60 other people. And Libby and I were kind of talking about how when I played guitar and I could sing and play at the same time, I'd suddenly created a thing that was performable for people. Like it was accessible. It was accessible to me, and I felt like I'd finally made it into music. Did you feel like? I mean, you're in orchestras. You're like, and now you play guitar and you can.
Yeah, like performing in orchestra and performing even like piano recitals, that was such a different feeling than finally like writing my own song. And really the performance began in church as well, like in choir. I really didn't do a ton of choir, but I was in praise band, and that unlocked it completely for me. I was like, okay, cool, this is empowering. I can play this instrument, I can sing, I can also do this with other people. Yeah, it was cool. And then we did like covers of like Reliant K songs and stuff. So it wasn't like totally just like worship music. But it was trying out being in a band, performing, doing stuff with other people. Yeah, it was absolutely next level, which I feel like if I stuck with violin, stuck with other instruments, I could probably still do that and have as much fun. But it was just like no one told me I had to play this. No one told me the songs that I should start with or that I had to do a recital. There's something different about a recital and like I'm going to take this in my own hands and I'm going to perform on my own time. I'm leading this. So I don't know. Yeah.
I totally agree. Like I didn't want to practice for recitals, and then I'd go to recitals and people were literally judging me. Like I was getting graded based on And so I just sort of stopped feeling that music. But I could play Pigs on the Wing, Part 2, which is the first song I ever learned how to play on guitar. I could play that in front of my mirror and pretend I was playing that in front of people and also enjoy the performance and feel like I was learning something. And I think it's a knee-jerk reaction to like practice is boring, people don't want to do it. And then and then you're forced to be in like almost like a sports team scenario where you can't play the thing unless there's 18 other people.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. Speaking of which, so I'm wearing this Broken Guided by Voices shirt. I think Robert Pollard said the same thing. He was like, he started playing music because it took too many people to play baseball. Like he wanted, you could get 3 people together and be in a band, but like you need 18 people to play music. So it's a team. It feels like a team sport. It feels good when you can do it with other people, but it's so empowering to do it on your own when you can too.
Yeah. Or like find the right channel, like the therapeutic channel. I think maybe that's more of it too, as like this was when I actually started expressing myself, which like I wasn't expressing myself in Suzuki. I was like just doing the steps, and it sounded nice, but it's very different, I mean, I think that's for like a lot of different art. There, the line between I'm completing a project or a task, and I'm expressing myself. I'm letting this run in an unknown direction. Just for me, that I may share with other people, but it isn't about sharing always. It's personal. I mean, I'm saying things people already know, but
I don't know if they do. I feel like there's like this moment we do a lot of instruction in like there's a particular class in the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism department about leisure activities, and me and like people I work with go there to really talk to people about feeling okay about doing things that you like, and they ask us specifically because we've like been musicians, and it's often terrifying to me that at some point that people who are in college don't feel like they're allowed to do things that are interesting to them, that make them feel fulfilled, that also involve like kicking on a distortion pedal, or like not just looking, going from mezzo forte to forte in a piece of sheet music and making essentially a recipe with other people. Like it takes guts to do that, but it also takes guts to feel like it's legit. Like you're allowed to.
Yeah, it oddly takes guts to like experiment. That's why kids art is like the best art, because kids they don't have any of the there's no shame yet.
Right.
There's no like self-criticism yet. It's just they're just doing whatever feels right in the moment. But that's like hard as an adult, and you sometimes feel silly, and you feel like you're supposed to have a plan. You're supposed to know what you want to do, or you're supposed to share it with other people. And I kind of like that I don't share everything that I write with other people.
Yeah.
Like, that feels good. Like, just like remembering that it's for yourself and like nobody's judging you. But it's weirdly hard to do that.
It is. And I think this is a through line for most of these interviews, which is like when people start to realize that, sharing it takes guts, but also not sharing it and being confident that you're doing something that's meaningful, even if you just keep it to yourself. That's another level of confidence of like, this means something to me. I don't have to commodify it if I don't want to.
Yeah.
I can do this when, if people are booking shows for me, that's awesome. I'll go play. I love my friends. This is awesome. But like, I can also make records in my basement, never share them with a single person. I can jam deck my way through life and like, and never care if anybody hears it and just do what I want. Or make art, or make cakes, or like whatever. Like you don't in a world where it feels like we have to capitalize because we're told that our talents could be worth money. That comic book could be worth money. Your guitar playing could be worth money. Your songs could be worth money. Like
I'm kind of scared of that. Like I'm scared if I lean too much into that, I'm gonna lose the passion for it. It's gonna muddy it, and I know that's not always the case. Like, it's awesome when people can support themselves on music. And doing what you love every day is that's amazing. But I am definitely worried about mixing my work time, my pleasure time, and and maybe that's why I don't like push too hard to book shows. I do like the whole like playing with friends, playing for friends. That feels like nourishing.
Yeah.
Like, that feels amazing. But I get a little weird when it becomes like a little bit of a business transaction. You're playing with people you don't know, and there's like kind of this awkwardness, and sometimes you can bridge that and like make some new friends, hear some new music, both support each other. And sometimes it feels a little sterile if you're not like, I don't know. I get worried about the commodification part.
Yeah.
Like, even when I'm making stuff for other people, if it's art, even if it's not music, I like to
Yeah.
like, I'm making this for you because I love you. And I just get nervous about what if I let this get too far away from where it started and what it's supposed to be. But I guess that's also like
it's a different kind of rule.
Like, like fame isn't chasing me or anything. Like, it's not like that. But I tend to not end up booking a lot of shows because I don't know. I'm just doing what I'm invited to do. And just being with people that I love, and we're just like sharing stuff together. And sometimes I forget that, I could just, if I wanted to, I could just book some shows out of state and go drive there. That would be fun. But I think of it too much if it's this like insular, maybe not insular, but it just feels really close.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, maybe I'm too protective of it.
Well, I think that like, it's good to hear you express things that way too, because like if people, there's all these sides to this. Like, what we're talking about right now is something that people in different domains feel differently. It's like, and it's not necessarily about not sharing it, but it could be about like, what am I, what are my own rules? What are my own boundaries for this art that I'm making, including like even starting to make that art. So it's kind of refreshing. Like, often when we talk to people here, their career is touring or whatever, and I think the ones who have my favorite attitudes are the ones where they're like, touring. People will people will tell you stories about how hard touring is, but it's fun. Like we chose to do this because we're having a good time. There are plenty of people I know who just are making it to, they don't care if they ever go on the road, and it's fine. And that is just as legitimate as like getting in a van with your buds and trying to make money in Memphis, Tennessee for some reason on a Tuesday night, playing music that maybe nobody cares about, but you care about. Like that's fun too, to introduce it to people.
I've never been on tour before, but I've been invited to go on tour this spring with my friend's band, and I'm not performing my songs. I'm like playing with them, and that sounded like that is where I want to be, like riding somebody else's train. I'm not leading it. That's the perfect tour scenario for me.
When I was in college, I had a band in college, and none of the guys in my band wanted to tour. Like we were making records, we had a studio in our basement, we were recording like crazy.
But you wanted to tour.
I wanted to tour. I think I was kind of afraid to go out of town. I was like not a good traveler when I was 20. I felt like I wanted something to happen. I felt like we were good, and I wanted to like do whatever it was you did to be a person who made money playing music. But none of the guys in my band did. They were like, one of them was a real homebody. One of them wanted to move to New York and did. One of them was just sort of blasé about it. But we all liked playing together. And when that band dissolved, I found myself in that position that you just described, where I was asking bands, or I was talking to bands that I liked who had seen me in that other band. They're like, "Do you want to play guitar in this band?" Like, yes. I don't want to be the band leader. I just want to learn your songs. I'll get in the van. I'll drive the van, and then I will feel good, like helping to extend your vision while doing something that I need to try out. And turns out it turned into something I really dug, and like ended up touring for 10 years. But like, I remember that first time playing in Kent, Ohio in 2001 with the John Wilkes booze explosion and being afraid to sleep on the floor of the place where we were sleeping, and like it just wasn't my thing. And then the next day when everything was fine and I realized how much fun I had, I was like, oh, that was awesome. I'm glad I did that. But up until that point, 8 years of playing music, it had never occurred to me that I would really like it that much, or that you could do it and not have to worry about getting paid to do it. You could do it as long as you could afford to do it. It could just be a fun adventure with friends.
Yeah, we could just be a road trip.
Yeah. What was the first song? When did you write your first song?
Whoa. Probably in middle school. I mean, I wrote a lot of just, I'm not going to be hard on myself. I was going to be like, I wrote a lot of trash songs. I wrote a lot of songs that felt good in the moment to write and never ended up being anything. It was just like in the journal alone in my room kind of thing. But when I was in middle school and high school, I just like performed covers, performed praise songs. I didn't think I was going to perform my own stuff. That just felt like diary time. That didn't. I think I would have just died of embarrassment if I sang any of those to my friends, or if I told them that I was writing songs. Like I didn't tell people I was writing songs. I only started performing in college. That's when I like finally got the guts to do something about it, and I got some positive feedback. And at that time, I relied on positive feedback. Where now I feel I feel good or bad about my set, but it doesn't really matter if someone says it was an amazing set or if it wasn't that great. Like I'm okay in my own. What I feel about it is the most important. But when I was in college, like having that first positive feedback, I was like, okay, cool. Like I am not awful, and the things I'm saying are not so embarrassing. Because I've only been able to write like, I guess the word is confessional stuff. And that feels embarrassing when you're younger.
Yeah.
And like, especially when you're figuring out like what friendships are and like how to connect with people. And you're like, I don't know how to express myself, and now I want to, and it feels awkward. And are people going to think my songs are corny? Like I don't know how to write a cool song, but I don't know, if you look at any song you like and you read the lyrics and then you pretend you wrote that, you're like, that's a weird song. That's strange. Or you think about band names. I think about band names a lot. Like if it was like without the context, every band name is stupid. Like in a very, like that's a positive thing I'm saying. Every band name is stupid. Like name your band whatever, because with the context of your music, it'll change it. I would never name a band Guided by Voices.
It would.
I mean,
unless it
love
was
Guided by Voices.
if it was a praise band.
It's a cool, it's a cool name, but like remove the context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember being struck by the name and being like, I don't think I'd like that band. I don't know what I thought about what they might be, but it seemed like maybe something that was either too cool or too prog. And then I heard it and was like, oh, it's just old guys playing music in their basement in
Yeah.
Ohio. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like, one of the things that we like promote in our library spaces is just like we call them studios because you're supposed to be able to like try and fail, like not fail, but like feel like what you just did was fine and good at the moment, but like that maybe next time I'm gonna do something different, or maybe I'll feel better about the next time or whatever. Like that's the great thing about studio is like
Yeah.
it's there to like splash some paint on the floor, play a wrong note, make up a song that's confessional that maybe you're embarrassed, like
Yeah.
you feel sort of embarrassed about, but you have to write it down. Like,
Yeah. And you have to break your own rules, I think, a lot too. I don't know if you ever feel like that's like when songwriting, but I have put a lot of like personal rules on what I am allowed and not allowed to write about. And I like just decided I don't need any of those. I was like, you can't write predictable stuff. You can't write about love. You can't write just anything that feels like it's been done before. And I didn't release music for a long time because I held up all these rules. And I was like, well, that's not the music I enjoy. I do enjoy music that is predictable and relatable and about love and maybe are sad, and that's fine. I don't need to have I don't need to have like a hyper unique point of view. Like I just like making this music. The end.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good. So I was just what you just said made me think about the time I was in high school, and it was maybe my band Cadmium Orange had maybe put out 2.
Wait, what did you say your band name is?
Cadmium Orange.
Cadmium Orange.
We had put out 2 records, and we were on our 3rd one, and I had made a rule that I was never, like, I was 17. I was like, I'm never going to write songs about being in love with people. Like, while I had I know I had told people I loved them at that point. I didn't, at some point I was like, this is so stupid. Like,
God, I would never tell the public about that.
yeah, but I was putting those songs out. I was like writing songs for the people I was in relationships with, and I thought that I had to stop doing that. And I remember I was the program director. We had an oldies station in our high school that was for the community, and I was the program director for it. And I was programming Wichita Lineman by Glenn Campbell. And it was like, I always thought I was like, what is this even about? I didn't know what a lineman was. I thought it was a football position. It's not a guy who it's a guy who works on power lines. And like, I remember listening to it and thinking, oh, this is a love song about a person in a blue collar position who could die at any moment, who is both in love with the idea of death and with this person who he hopes to go home to. That's how I can write love songs. I can write love songs about things I know, like, or that I want to know, like traveling in space. Like, they don't have to be serious. They don't have to be funny. They can be anything that I'm comfortable with. And I can't remember who wrote that song. It's escaping me right now, but it sounds so serious. That song, I don't know if you know that song off the top of your head. It's beautiful.
You know what? I don't. But a lot of people recently have been mentioning that song. It's feeling astrological at this point.
Yeah, I think we're here. This is
probably time that I listen to.
This whole interview is really all those people and I conversing to get you here so we can talk about Wichita Lineman in front of people. But there's something about that, like there's and it was like I had made those rules and I started throwing them away. And I started liking my songs. So the first song that I wrote after that, like maybe that day, was a song called "I Want to Be the Universe," which was because I had heard someone tell me that if you were able to travel faster than the speed of light, your mass would expand, so you would actually become the universe. And I was like, this is kind of a love song. Like I'm sad about like people not liking me. Well, what if I could go faster than the speed of light and just become everything? Like then everyone has to like me because I am everything. And so like I started writing songs that way, and they got good. Like finally cool. I felt like comfortable about them because I'd thrown those rules out. Like I like love. I think love's cool.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say I love you in a song for years, and then I wrote a song about a dance that I specifically put the words I love you in just so I would get it out of my system, and then I could do it again. So it just takes like feeling it out. But I know exactly what you mean. I mean, one of the reasons why I was so taken with your set at the loading dock was that your songs are mysterious, but they're also really relatable.
Mysterious?
Yeah, I felt like they were mysterious and relatable.
Oh,
and
cool.
I like that about they're accessible and relatable. We should probably hear one, actually. I think we've been leading up to this point. But I'd love to hear one of your songs to see if I still feel that way. But I did when I saw you on the loading dock. I mean, really the context of that show was also pretty cool because we were like, I was worried. It was windy. You're like fighting, you're playing acoustic in the wind.
There's rain coming down the vines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
all those
really
things.
magical.
But it seems like you've successfully like you're able to share those like what feel like confessional songs in a way that's relatable. And that's what I get from your music, at least now.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Do you want to play something for us real quick, and then we can move into some
Sure.
history of NC State music that you may have been involved with?
Oh my gosh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
I usually set out maybe you do this. I set out a set list based on tuning. So I am starting out with the saddest one. Maybe not saddest, but like it's like noon on
Yeah,
a
who knows?
Tuesday.
Yeah.
But like people listen to sad music all day.
Right.
Even when they're not sad. But yeah, this is one that I didn't play at the loading dock. So I thought it would be nice to
Cool.
bring out. It seems like we're fine, tangled at mine for hours on end. Decided and reckless, I choose to be the fool again. The patterns persist. You'll change your mind, I'm convinced. Decided and reckless, I choose to be the fool again. Barely let you in when you quickly shut. When is it ever safe to open up? Decided and reckless, I choose to be the fool again. And as soon as your eyes settle on mine, my impulsivity takes flight. Decided and reckless, I choose to be the fool again. If every option were set at your feet, what makes me think you decide on me?
We're here at State of Sound Stories with Toss, also known as Natalie King. That's a Toss song, right? Are all of the songs that you write these days Toss?
Yeah, they're all tossed.
Yeah.
When I was, I'm gonna put this
Go ahead, please.
exit song, performing mode. Yeah, when I was in college and I started writing music for the first time, I was like, I'm just gonna play under my name. Like, what's the big deal? But after a while, that felt kind of vulnerable. But also, I knew that I wanted to play with other people.
Mhm.
I really didn't like the idea of being like Natalie and her backing band.
Yeah.
Which is like not a bad thing. It just like didn't click with me. So I called the project Toss, and I did make it a full band with my sweet buddies. I'm name dropping today. I'm gonna plug some folks.
Please do.
with Elise Jaffe, who's an amazing drummer, and she's in Truth Club, and they're awesome. But she really helped me like start the actual, like she helped me actually form these songs and like get it going. And then sweet Max Gowan, everybody's so sweet. Sweet Elise Jaffe, sweet Max Gowan. He plays in his own project, Max Gowan. They helped me think about it as not just something I was writing, but like a whole full package, the whole vibe. We're not a full band anymore. I'm just playing by myself. But I asked them if I could play by myself for a while and figure out what it actually was supposed to sound like. At the time, I really wanted it to be like Speedy Ortiz, like Pile, like Hop Along, like something kind of ripping. And then I realized that it's not ripping. It needs a little bit more patience and needs to be held a little tenderly. So right now it's solo until I can kind of figure out how it's supposed to actually exist, especially with like recording. I'm trying to record stuff right now. So I'm still experimenting a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, so we were talking before, and you told me you were a little concerned because you don't have like a solid set of recordings to share with people, but everybody knows. Everybody knows. Like people, you've been around, you've been friends with people and making music and being a part of the scene for a very long time. So people, I think, are enthused about you as part of the Triangle music scene and stuff. And going back to what we just talked about, like, and that, having recordings isn't the end all be all. Like, you can still exist as a working artist who's making stuff that's ethereal, or that people know they can rely on you, or you're playing with other people. Is recording something that you are excited about getting under your belt eventually?
Yeah. Okay, so I've recorded before. I've recorded with some friends in like a DIY space, doing like rough punk music, and I've recorded in a nice studio with like an emo band before, and I've had these different experiences with recording, and I didn't know what I wanted to do for this because now it's in my hands. I'm not in somebody else's band. I'm in my band. And I've decided that I'm just going to do it myself, it doesn't just sound, it is intimidating and big, but I have so many like amazing friends who are audio engineers. My brother went to school for audio engineering. I know there's like 5 or 6 people in my life, like so many great resources and people who are letting me borrow their equipment and teaching me like what a compressor is. I didn't know about what are they called? Like I'm losing the information now. Yeah, like oh my gosh.
Filters?
No, not pop filters. Like I'm thinking about the spaces that microphones take up.
Yeah.
And like I didn't know about that. So it might take a long time, might take years, because I'm learning everything from scratch. But I think it's going to be more rewarding that way.
Is that something? So you were an art and design student here at State. You graduated with a graphic design degree.
Yeah.
Is that process? I will say that like I started recording stuff, and maybe this is just like because I grew up in a pretty traditional Christian family that privileged boys, and so like the boy in the family got to do things without as much permission as everybody else, which I'll be quite honest, it started to make me feel bad when I was very young. I'm like, why is this double standard here? That said, like it gave me this kind of awful like white male privilege thing where I would just throw whatever microphone in front of anything, not even think about what it was recording, but just to get it done. Yeah. Where it sounds like the method you're describing is one where you actually know why you're getting the sounds you are. I'm not going to blame all this on like the white maleness of my traditional Christian family, but I will say that like I think part of that is me being afraid to know more because I'm afraid I won't understand it. And it's like, I'll just throw that 50 in front of whatever and get whatever sound I get. Is your method drawn more from stuff that like maybe led you to design, like wanting to have an understanding of the why behind what you do? Like what makes you want to know everything about pickup patterns and really know audio engineering before you just get down to it?
I don't think I'm going to be able to know everything. I think instead of like this fear of not knowing, like I sure as hell know that I don't know enough. I mean, I feel that way about like any of my interests. I always feel like I don't know enough, but that's also a cool thing because there's so much to know. But I just want to do it right. Like, yes, I can experiment and yeah, I can just like throw some different mics up, but that experimentation is also like figuring it out at the same time. I just want to be intentional with it.
Yeah.
But what did you mean about like
I
design?
guess like so like I was I'll this is me just admitting I'm just confessions, Jason's confessions to Natalie.
Yeah.
Art, visual art and stuff, especially graphic design. That stuff kind of scares me because I'm impatient. Mm-hmm. I'm impatient. I can do other things kind of quickly, but I'm not like, when it comes to step-by-step processes, I'm not great at it. Mm-hmm. Like, I get intimidated easily. And so thinking about, like, understanding why I would use, like, I know that I'm supposed to use it. I know that I'll use a 58 for vocals and a 57 for my guitar, but I know what the pickup patterns are, but I don't necessarily remember why I care, you know?
It's interesting that you said step-by-step because I don't think about, like, music or art as step-by-step. Mm-hmm. Like, I think about, I'm entering this... I'm entering the rabbit hole and I'm just going forward as fast as I can and I'm just in the zone. So maybe this is maybe like recording is a different, maybe because it's intimidating and it's so much that I don't know, I feel like I have to set myself up a little bit, where with like art and music, I'm winging it. There is no step by step. I'm changing it up every step of the way. It's so strange that you said step by step in when talking about art and design. I guess in design that makes sense.
That's what I mean.
Design is so much more structured, which is maybe why I'm not in design anymore.
Well, yeah, and so maybe that's what I was getting at too.
Yeah.
Is like that. That seems like something that comes. The people I really, really respect. Mm-hmm. So many of my colleagues who have been students I've worked with, or people who are designers in general. They're so diligent and deliberate with their processes.
Yeah.
And it's intimidating to me. Like, it's something that, like, I don't do. Like, was that, I mean, it's, and so I immediately think, that, and I could be wrong about this, but the way you described that sounded like the way that people who, like architects I've worked with or graphic designers I know, they are so good at laying it out. They, like, knowing why, like, if I lay it out in this way, then the result like the concept that I can feel can come together with these technical steps put down.
Yeah, I don't have those technical steps. I have like a loose idea and I'm running with it and I'm doing iterations and I'm like in the dark and that feels fun and fine. But I feel like I shouldn't do that with recording. Maybe I'm just being a little too. Maybe I'm just being too cautious.
I don't know.
Because I don't usually. I wish I was more step by step. I wish I had better structure. Because oftentimes I get to a certain point with design, and then I realize that I missed a crucial step, or I should have. You're supposed to. This is a simple one. You're supposed to paint the background. You're not supposed to, but it's helpful to paint the background before you paint everything in front of it. But I have been known to paint what's in front first, and then fill it out in the back, or instead of doing a loose sketch of the whole picture, I'm just already on the little details, and I don't even know what the full picture is.
Yeah.
But that's kind of fun for me, but that's probably one of the reasons why design wasn't quite it. I'm definitely more, I guess, art-minded, experiment-minded. I don't know.
I feel like when I get asked to do instruction for like art and design classes, they kind of expect me to come in there with like a recipe book of how to finish this project.
What are you instructing them on?
Well, they'll have projects where it's like you need to write and record a podcast that illustrates this design principle, and it's got to be fun and whatever. And like I show up and I'm kind of like, the hard part's the content. Like, you all figure that out. Like, the technical part of all this is actually really simple. Like, you can read about it. And I feel like I get looked at in those classes like I'm crazy. Like, there's like
they're looking for the
they're really privileging, like they're thinking that the technical stuff is the true obstacle, but when in reality it's the content. It's like that's the hard part. So the technical stuff, I guess what I'm saying is I admire what you're saying because it sounds like you're interested in doing it the way that I think is really good for people to do it. You have an idea of what you want it to sound like, and then you're going to meticulously, or in whatever way you want, figure out how to get to that thing that you envision.
Yeah,
versus
think
the
and do,
other way,
baby.
where you, yeah, exactly, where you instead of like thinking I have to know all this before I start, you actually have stuff that you want to record, and then you're like trying to make the tech fit the content versus the other way around.
Yeah, I'm trying not to make the mistake of painting the foreground before the background.
Yeah.
You know.
And sometimes you don't have to, but I think
Sometimes
you
you
can
have to.
approach it either way. But like, it's interesting because it's just different ways of thinking it. What brought you to art and design? Like, why did you end up at NC State?
I've always been an art kid. I just draw all the time, and I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do for a living, and everyone around me kind of convinced me that graphic design was the only way to make a living in art, and that's not true. But I just kind of like got on that track, not very thoughtfully, I guess is what I'm saying, because I loved art and I didn't know how to. Yeah, I didn't know how to make it a bigger part of my life or how to rely on it for a living. And yeah, design and art are they overlap, but I look at them as very different things. But anyway, I went to College of Design, did the graphic design thing. I wasn't a good student.
What does that mean? Do you mean grades wise, or do you mean like feeling wise, or a little bit of both?
Probably both.
Yeah.
I wasn't in a good mental headspace. I was going through a lot of mental illness during school. But I also just like didn't know how to sit down and do something.
Yeah.
Like I just didn't have the patience, or like I couldn't visualize what something finished looked like.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it. Like seeing, or at least trying to see what a finished product looks like. But also taking the many to-dos on your list and making them small in your brain and making them bite-sized. Like that's something I know how to do now if I have a task, whether it's for work or a personal project. But then I was like, everything seems so vague and large, and I'm not mentally well. And so school was tough, and I was not super happy with it. But I was doing music at the time. Music was the thing that felt like the release.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know if I'm questioning if I like art. But I was starting to play shows and feeling more comfortable and not having to think about this was not required of me.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to think about the finished product or like wonder if this is going to support me later on in life financially or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that really helped. So, and I didn't ever want to be a full-time musician either. So there was so much stress was relieved. This was just for fun. This was just for me.
Yeah. I think that, I often tell classes when I'm doing instruction that I went to college to be in my band. Like, I didn't feel ready for college when I went, but I knew I needed to get out of the house. Like, and my bandmates were going to Indiana University, so I should go there too. And it was like, there's a lot of serendipitous things that happen there, like meeting my friends who started some labels that are cool that some of my bands ended up being on, being in a place that was supportive of music. And I eventually figured out stuff I liked about school, but if anything, college made me learn how to support arguments. Like learn how to not like in a crappy way, not like in a propaganda podcast style way, but like more like I can now figure out where evidence is. I can base decisions upon evidence that feels right to me, and then move on with my life. And I had a high school teacher that used to say like college is just where you learn how to think more clearly, and that can often mean like not liking anything that you're doing in college. And I think that just feeling like I'm an adult and I don't like this. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. But like,
or even learning how to learn.
Yeah, totally.
Like sometimes I think I could do it again better. Like I could go back. I could do the whole thing and be a more diligent student and have fun with what I'm doing and feel really involved. Like I could do that again now. But like, why would I want, like the whole process was learning how to think, learning how to learning what you like and don't like, and making the mistakes. Like it's not about going to college and doing it perfectly.
Right.
That is the experimentation zone.
Right. Right.
Whoa, loop it back.
Yeah, there it is. Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's the experimentation zone.
What was it, were you part of another, when you started releasing the anxiety valve through music, was it on your own or with other people?
It was on my own at first, and I was just playing like a little show here and there, and I released I'm so sorry. I took it off Bandcamp. I released like a couple of songs on my own under my name and felt really good about that. But then Socrates reached out to me and they asked me if I would play guitar with them. And that was like my, maybe not first band experience, but like first real band experience. And writing somebody else's project, like that was cool. I mean, they asked me to write with them. And that was like incredibly flattering. Like it's one thing to play somebody's music, but for them to like invite you in on the process is really cool. So after I did my own stuff, after I graduated, I played with them for a little bit, and they had their own, thing for so long, and everybody loves them. So I was just there on the tail end, and we recorded some stuff we never put out, but it was cool to just be a part of something else and not just be in my own little emotional world with my songs. So yeah.
Where at this point, and so this is between, you were here 2012 to 2016, right?
Yeah.
Where do bands play? Where do you play your solo shows at NC State or around or as part of the NC State community in those years?
In people's apartments in Fincastle specifically, which I don't know. I think it's still called Fincastle. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like this beautiful old brick apartment building, like diagonal from Nice Price and like next to Reader's Corner. I lived there for a little bit, and like a couple of my neighbors would put on shows there. And Radio Shack was like the big one. That's where everybody hung around. Of course, like I think I missed a large portion of the Radio Shack chapter, but that's no longer. I don't know what that's turned into. Probably a box apartment.
Where was that? I can't remember where Radio Shack was.
It's like kind of behind where the Jimmy John's was, like between Jimmy John's and that. You're like not quite at Cameron Village yet.
Oh yeah.
That kind of pocket.
So back there, I didn't realize.
It's just like in a house.
I went to at least a show there, and I didn't remember that it was so close to campus.
Yeah, it's incredibly close, incredibly tight. Like very small rooms.
I mean, people. That's the college DIY joint that I know about from my time here at NC State. But, I came from we had at least nine venue basement show network in Bloomington, Indiana in the 90s. Like there were 9 unofficial venues to play in addition to the 5 official ones. I don't know how we had that many bands. And there were shows every night. Like and so that's cool. coming to State, I actually, one of the things that drives me here is like I want to encourage people to start throwing shows at their own houses. Like I want to put shows in the loading dock. I want people to like feel like they can do this because I know that it's around. I know that release valve is there for other people too.
Oh yeah.
You know.
I feel like people think that they have to have like a brick building with electricity and AC and parking. But I mean, it doesn't even have to be in the inside of someone's house. I mean, so a couple of my friends and I are doing like a cover set show Sunday. This is me plugging. Are doing a cover set show Sunday for Halloween. And we couldn't find a venue at first. We are playing in a venue. Perfect Lovers is like a new venue in Durham. But we were going to maybe have it outside in a backyard.
Yeah.
And like someone's living room is totally too small. Doesn't, like in someone's garage. I mean, you can have a show anywhere. You don't even have to have a mic.
You don't.
You can just yell into the, you don't have to have anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool to have there's always, the funny thing is that there's always like one person with a PA and like nobody else has a PA. And like one friend who has like a couple mics, but like one's busted.
Right. The good kind with the switches.
Yeah.
And maybe that's
like duct tape.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But you really truly don't need a lot to just perform in front of
it's true.
Your friends or people you don't know. I mean, you don't need anything.
It's true. I've been. So first of all, I'm really enjoying this conversation. I keep trying to find times to ask you to play another song, and every time I do, more landscaping equipment starts making noise. But I don't know if you noticed while you were playing the last song, which was beautiful, by the way. What was that song called?
That's called Decided.
So it was gorgeous, and the sirens that were happening were in key with the notes you were playing, at least partially. Would you be willing to play another thing for us while the landscaping? Yeah. Okay. Let's hear something else. And is this in a different tuning?
There's just one string I gotta take back down.
While you're tuning, I'm going to say that, like, I'm looking at your Alvarez and thinking that is an Alvarez acoustic was the first guitar I ever bought too. It was the greatest guitar I ever owned.
Aw.
It stayed in tune. It sounded beautiful. So.
It does, honestly. Okay, so it sounds great, and I've beat this guitar. I'm so bad with my instruments. I just beat them up. I lay them down wherever. I'm surprised it's not broken. Like there's cracks in the back. I'm so cruel to this guy, but it sounds so good all the time.
Yeah, I love them.
Just very reliable.
So let's. What's this one called?
This is called Clean Up. I can't quite remember if I played this. You'll have to tell me afterwards.
Okay.
Starting to clean up, washing a load or two, disconnected brain talks to the hands in the sink, unmotivated eyes try not to see the future, just stay in the now, fill this pitcher with water, I've got things to do, I've got an errand to run, you know I don't have time for you, I don't have time for anyone, I've got things to do, it's a long list, but I'm sure there's some love I forgot, someone that I miss, but I'd like to not think about it, motion of busy, rhythm of maintenance, keeps me from having to do any work on my insides. Let's keep it light. I'm sure there's something I forgot to do. Someone that I miss, but I'd like to not think about it. With so much of me I'd like to fix, I'd like to not think about it. So much of me I'd like to fix, I'd like to not think about it.
It's State of Sound Stories. We're with Toss, Natalie King. I love songs that talk about lists. I love songs that have to-do lists in them. That one does. So yeah, it's my favorite genre. I feel like it's what has made pop country. They're just songs about lists. Think about it. The next time you turn on a pop country station, they're just listing things, right?
Yeah.
But I'm talking about songs that talk about making lists and talk about how much there is to do.
Are you a list maker?
I'm not, and I think that's why I like them.
I am a list maker.
You're a list maker.
Yeah, I'm a bad list maker. I make a list on my phone every single day of all this stuff, either that I have to do or that's like on my mind, because if I don't write it down, it's lost.
Yeah.
And then I have like everything that I'm doing for the next couple days. And if you asked me what I had to do today or asked me what I'm going to do tomorrow, I'm going to forget, but it's in my phone.
Yeah.
But I'm listing stuff down all the time because I'm forgetful. And so, but this song is like, I mean, the list of things I have to do is sometimes the excuse for not being like emotionally present.
Yep.
So that's kind of what that's about.
And that's what I love about that song is that it easily positions. I like list songs because they are lists hide things, right? Like we make a list to hide, either hide behind the list or like we use it as a thing that keeps us from having to think. And so like we can use those things. So it's beautiful. I love that one. That's great. Thank you for playing it.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Real quick, what time is it, Kyle? I'm enjoying this. That's 1:00. So do you have 10 minutes? Yeah, just sitting out, the sun's out. Keep that running. Welcome. We're recording a podcast for State of Sound. Thank you for joining us. It's Natalie King. Natalie, I have so many things that I want to talk to you about. We could do this for like 30 more minutes, I'm sure. But I want to talk to you about where you ended up working after you graduated from NC State. I also kind of want to talk about where you worked at NC State, because we talked about this before. You were at the fabled Jimmy John's on Hillsborough.
Yeah, I was a delivery driver.
How long did you work there?
You know, college is a blur. I don't know how long I worked there.
Was it more than a year?
It might have not been a full year.
Yeah. Did you have other jobs while you were in school?
I'm sure I did.
Yeah, I mean,
But Jimmy John's stuck out to me the most because I made that job into a game.
Mm-hmm.
I was a delivery driver, and I really wanted to be like a cyclist, but I was not in shape, and I was scared of biking on the road. But I thought it was really cool. No, but I was a delivery driver, and I was honestly pretty reckless on the road. But I was trying to see how fast I could deliver sandwiches.
It's freaky fast, according to the tagline.
Yeah, and when you come back and your manager's like, "What's up, superstar?" It feels good. So I did that. No, but what you're kind of leading to is, so I went to school for graphic design, got a graphic design job, and hated it. And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I wasn't their designer for very long, but I was like, this is totally not it. I knew it wasn't it, but this is not it. And they had an opening in their warehouse.
Wait, before you moved in, so you got a graphic design job where you work now?
No.
Okay.
No, a small business in Greensboro.
So when you took the job, I just need to ask this before we move on.
Yeah.
You had already felt weird about, right? Like you were
Yeah,
already
I was like,
uncomfortable.
this is not it, but I don't know what else to do.
Got
I
it.
just got this degree. I just need to use it. I'll figure something out
Are
later.
you from Greensboro? I never asked.
Oh, no. I'm from Ayden, North Carolina.
Okay.
That's Eastern NC. But I moved to Greensboro after I graduated. But yeah, I got hired as a graphic designer, didn't like it. They had an opening in the warehouse, and I convinced them to let me work in the warehouse. I was like, you can find a designer anywhere. But like, I was just like so stressed out.
So you
I was like,
moved-
just train me to do that job. I'm going to work in the warehouse.
You moved from graphic design to the warehouse of the space in Greensboro.
And this is such a small business that like one person is doing the warehouse.
Okay.
Right. It's just like I'm doing the fulfillment, I'm updating the website, I'm unloading trucks. And I was like, that seems peaceful somehow, or like concrete. I can see the list. The list is clear.
Yeah.
And then I can go home and maybe not think about it, right? And so I did. That's where I got my warehouse experience start. But time goes by, other jobs come and go. I'm still like, I don't know what I'm doing with myself. I start working at Cat's Cradle in the back room, working the door, and I love that job. That was so fun.
So you moved back from Greensboro.
So I was in Greensboro working that job, thinking about moving to Chapel Hill or Carborough. And had a great time at that job, still needed to make some more money. And the bartender that I was working with then was like, well, hey, Merge is hiring. Didn't you used to work in a warehouse? They need like a fulfillment person or something. And so I applied to it thinking, I'm not going to get this. Like, well, I mean, yeah, just like you shoot in the dark. And
especially, I mean, were you thinking that? I mean, okay, so
maybe that was like a way to keep myself from being anxious. But I was like, I'm not gonna get this, but I'll put my resume in.
Well, and again, sorry for interrupting, but like, I'm still like starstruck about things like Merge Records. I mean, I'm in my 40s now. I've been in bands that have been on cool labels. I've met people that I've never lost my great appreciation for things like Merge. I mean, I snuck in. It was in 97 or 98 I wasn't 21 and I needed to see Superchunk at Second Story in Bloomington. So I snuck in and Neutral Milk Hotel happened to be opening. So I got to see, who knew, and like these things kind of changed my life. And I was just, and so I know what you mean. Like, it's like, I mean, I wonder, I don't know if you fetishized something like Merge Records as much as I did when I was a kid, but like applying for that job, even in the warehouse, might feel like, I don't know, I might be, like.
Well, especially because like I don't consider myself someone who actually knows a ton about music. I am the friend who's like always a little bit behind, a little bit out of the loop. Like it takes me a minute to really soak in music and decide that I like it. So I definitely feel like I don't know enough about music, and I don't know if I like fetishized Merge exactly. Like I like Superchunk, but I wasn't as nervous about meeting them as like Waxahachie is a big deal to me.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I was very, very nervous about maybe coming in contact with her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought there's no way I'm going to get that job. And I did. And maybe a part of it was that I wasn't absolutely freaking out.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure.
And you always try to remind yourself that like musicians are people, musicians are people, musicians are people.
Yep.
Your heroes are people. And I think I've been able to conquer most of that. So especially with like interacting with musicians more now these days, it's less starstruck.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird how like I did some work or whatever. I would go to like the secretly Canadian warehouse to pick up records. Like band, like when I was still actively on that label, something was coming out that I really liked, and I'd go because we'd all, the people on the label get access to a copy if we want it. And there were still times when I was just happy that I still retained that. Like I remember Unknown Mortal Orchestra got signed to the label, and I can't remember his name, whoever the singer is, at a party that the label was throwing, and I like walked to the other room because I couldn't believe I was meeting like he was there. And like I'm 10 years older than him, like he likes my band too, but it's also your colleagues. Like you're promoting each other's art. You're like doing a thing that you're in a warehouse, like putting stuff in, and I assume mailing
Boxes?
people things. Yeah, touching a lot of boxes.
No, yeah. Oh, yeah, to be clear about what I do there, my official title is D2C manager, which is D2C means direct to customer. But basically what I do is I co-manage the warehouse, all the shipping and receiving. So that's like partially mail order, which you get to talk to customers, which is really cool. A part of it is like shipping store orders. Part of it is trying to figure out how the heck to get merch to bands on tour.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like its own wild game. And that's really fun. You're sending stuff to distros. But it's like I'm touching all the stuff that's leaving the door, and I get to talk to the people who are receiving it, and that's cool to be like on the ground floor of it all.
I mean, I think one of the most important parts of a touring band is the personality of the person who is connecting you with the thing that you take home. I'm not just going to call this the merch table person. I'm talking this person is the connect. Like you've just experienced something that live. That is ethereal. And then if you want to take part of that home with you and directly support the artist, if the person who is at that table is cool, the artist, like you have made...
As an extension, yeah.
You and the sound engineer have just made those people's nights better, right? Like these like hidden figures in the music industry are the people who run the fucking warehouses, who have, you know what I mean? Like they're the who are at the tables, who are running the boards. I mean, it's obviously the musicians have to be there too, but like... It's such a huge deal. And
it's cool to be a part of like the supporting system. Like performing music is cool and everything. But I don't know, like being a part of supporting someone else's project, like that feels good. Playing bass in somebody else's band feels good. Making somebody else a flyer for their show, helping them set up or take down stuff feels good. Helping them sell merch feels great. Like being a part of the whole system feels good. Dropping off a tour order feels awesome. It always feels awesome. Like even when I'm like, I'm not gonna feel nervous. This is nothing. I'm just gonna drop this by Cats. And then of course I'm like beaming, even though I just handed them a box of records and I have to head out. Like I don't know. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's cool. And it's a small team too. Like it's like 3 of us handling most of all of this stuff, so we all get to have like a cool hand and all of it.
That's so cool.
I don't know. So anyway, that's what I do there. I was telling you earlier that I can't really demystify a lot of I thought that I couldn't really demystify a lot of the label because what I do is so strictly like shipping and receiving and mail order and customer service, which in my mind like doesn't like that's not like the center of being a label, but it is a huge part of any label, is getting the product to people and interacting with people.
I mean, at the heart of all this is, we have streaming services and YouTube and stuff, but like the people who actually support, the patrons of the arts are buying physical things and going to shows. And they like are looking forward to it, not just to collect it. I mean, I have been a record collector in the past. I have bought things that I didn't think I'd ever listen to. And then I got over that, and I started realizing that what I was buying because of the experience of having something live happen when I used a physical object to make it happen. Like, it's the closest thing I can get to the show, which is different than, like, I mean, it's kind of different than just pressing play on Spotify. It totally is. You know, when I put on Kaput on LP, it's a different thing than when I listen to it, which I listen to constantly in my car. You know, it's totally different because it's intentional.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's mystical to remind people that doing that, like, the foundation of all of this is logistics.
Yeah.
Everything is logistics. Setting up the tour to get to the Cat's Cradle back room to play that show takes a lot of steps.
Yeah, you're reminded about how much, like, the artist and their team has to do, like, outside of the label. Like, the label has a lot of work to do, but how much you have to do as a touring artist, your manager's doing, all the people in your band, like, where are we staying? How much merch are we going to need for this show? Because we can't fit it in the van.
Right.
You know?
Tour, like, merch drops is one of the most nerve-wracking parts about being on tour.
Yeah.
I was in Magnolia did a memorial thing for Jason with this guy Tim Showalter from a band called Strand of Oaks in Europe a few years ago, and I hadn't toured in Europe in years, and I'd forgotten what it was like to get merch over there. And then, like, we got caught up in customs in the UK. We ran out of shirts after 3 shows, and I had to call people. I had to call people in Europe who I didn't know. And just say, hey, you don't know who I am. I've got this template. I need 300 shirts, and I need them dropped off in Belgium tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, sure. They coordinate with all the people back home who have all those design things, and we get it. I mean, it's easier now that we have cell phones.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine what that would have been like in 2003 when I was in Europe the first time. Like, we had to solely rely on the label, and we mostly have to still. You know, when I talk to, like, Matt Barnhart, who, you know, does sound for Superchunk Mountain Goats, he just knows you all intimately, He knows everyone in the warehouse intimately, because when he was tour managing, he had to know immediately. It's amazing what people can do. I mean, so from DIY shows up to arranging drops for the hundreds of records that you have to get into somebody's hands so they can make money on the road. I think it's completely mystical, but it's totally, like, we all do these things every day, and we don't think about how they put them all together to make it work, like, seamlessly. Obviously, things mess up, but
Yeah.
it's so cool that you're part of that.
Yeah, it
You're
feels really cool to be
making
a
Merge
part of
Records
that.
run.
Feels really cool, and it's like it's such a cool place to work too. I don't know if you have this. I could just keep talking and talking and talking. I don't know if you've ever had, like, a workplace anxiety like this, but I've for a long time have had workplace anxiety about, like, I can't be myself at work. You know, like, I have to be not just professional, but like a completely different me. Or at least I thought that was the thing I thought for a long time, which, like, is not true. Like, you can totally be yourself at work. But I have been, like, completely welcomed as, like, myself at work, and it feels good to not worry about that.
Yeah.
I mean, amongst the many other things that I love about Merge, and I love working there, like, it's cool to know that I'm helping people, and I get to be myself, and I love the people I work with, and we put out really awesome music.
Yeah. It feels cool to just be in proximity to that.
Yeah.
You know? And so, like, you know, again, that, like, struckness, like, even talking to you about it, like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I mean, I know people who have worked in labels, and it's, like, just whatever, but, like, people who
you were
really,
in, like, Magnolia Electrico. Like, what?
I mean, but it's, like, one of those things where it's, like,
Well,
it's,
like,
you know, people, it's still fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Like, I think people who are meant to work in the music industry, and again, I think we've nailed it, too. This conversation is cool. I haven't had this with anybody on this before. Working behind the scenes in music or art, again, is so important. Like, if you're an engineer and you don't like engineering, you can use those skills to help logistics for bands, you know? Like, these are things that are, like, valuable, and, like, helping people connect their artistic vision with whatever it is they went to school for is something that I know, like you were just saying, like, you love making flyers for bands. I love being in a library position where I'm not necessarily creating content, but helping people understand connections to do things that are fulfilling to them.
Yeah.
And everybody needs them, you know? And it's not even like saying, well, the world needs ditch diggers too, because this is not digging ditches. Like, sending records to people who are, like, excited about it, and working with artists that you love who make those records to help propagate their art is some of the coolest work you can do.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Okay, well, we could talk forever, but we probably shouldn't. This has been awesome.
Thank you
I
so
really
much.
appreciate you coming today. And you have one more song prepared for us. Is that true?
Yeah, I do.
Will you play that last song for
Yeah,
us
sure.
to close us out for today?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like to tell our audience before we say goodbye for now?
Yeah, sure. If you're not feeling too hungover on Sunday, Sunday evening at Perfect Lovers in Durham, we're having a cover set showcase. Pavement is playing. Sheryl Crow is playing. Talking Heads is playing. We've got a touring artist coming through as well. It's gonna be really, really fun. Yeah.
I'm going to try so hard to be at that show.
Please come. It'll be cool.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks so much, Natalie. Natalie King, Toss, Merge Records Merge Records employee, and critical to the Merge Records universe. Graphic design enthusiast, but not activist.
You're really good at this.
Yeah. I'm just like trying to give you things to put at the bottom in your signature line.
Yeah.
Like, and NC State alum. We're so glad. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Thanks so much.
What's this one called?
What is this one called? Oh, this is Empty or Open. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
And there goes the bus. So now that is our cue for you to start playing.
Yeah, we've had a lot of great background noise. Feel the weight leave from my chest. You know what's really funny? Is sometimes you start off in the wrong place on your guitar.
The great thing is that we can edit this.
The great thing is that you can edit it. You can also not edit it if you want to, because musicians mess up.
We're
normalizing.
Let's demystify normalization.
All right, cool. This is called Empty or Open. Feel the weight leave from my chest. As I observe the space that is left, I think I need a second opinion. Does it look to be empty or open? Empty or open? Halloween served as an anniversary. Every spring brought new unwanted seeds. Our push and pulls were clockwork, but still upsetting.